Income Tax 2020, Practice Problem 1, Presentation 45, Residential Energy Credit Tax Formula with the use of and help from Excel. Come in, relax with Income Tax 2020. Here we are in our Lacerte tax software. You don't need the Lacerte tax software to follow along, although I do think they have a 30-day free trial. So if you can get access to a promo or demo version of it or any other tax software, it could be a good tool to practice with. We're going to be continuing on with our comprehensive practice problem 1. In prior presentations or prior sections, we entered the information related to the income items. Then in the next section, we entered information related to the above-the-line deductions, the adjustments to income. Then we focused in on the itemized deductions. Then we took a look at the Schedule C business, adding a sole proprietor business, now focusing in on the second page where we're looking at the credits. So we're adding the credits. This time we're looking at energy type credits, and we've entered it into the system here. You can see it on Schedule 3, and that's going to be the 480, and that came from the Form 2441. Now this is something that the client would have to provide us with again, and we wouldn't have formal documentation for it. So when we put it into the Excel worksheet, once again, we kind of want to do the Excel worksheet separate from the tax, the actual tax return. But this one's a little bit tricky to do because this is a type of credit that has changed year over the year, and it depends on what kind of thing that you're putting in as to what's going to be the rate for the credit, how much you're going to get to deduct for it, and what the caps are on it. So you're probably going to be somewhat dependent on the tax return, but you can at least get from the source document, read over the source document. If they put something in there that's related to an energy credit, then you can basically add it in or double check it with your document over here. And of course, we can see where it falls in terms of our formula. So in terms of, it's going to be down here in the credits line item. So down here in the tax credits line item, the non-refundable typically portion, we're going to go over to the credits to add it. I'm going to have it down here in the other credits, the residential energy credit. Now the calculation, the amount we would then get from the client, we would know how much they paid basically. But then the caps could change kind of based on what the thing is that they put in place. So this one I think is 10%. So I'm going to say that I think they put in 2,000, and I think it's capped at 2,000 times 10%. Is that how it works? So I'm going to go back on over. I'm going to be dependent to some degree on the tax return, however, because again, there's a bunch of different groups with regards to which energy credit it is, and is there a cap? Did they do an energy credit in the prior year? So we're dependent to some degree on the tax return with some of these items. So we're going to go back on, and they've changed, obviously the result of that, or the reasoning for that, is because the law has kind of been changed, they extended it, and so on and so forth with some of these credits. So it's coming from Form 5695, so I'm then going to go to Form 5695 here. And then we have our credit. We're on page 2. This is the non-business energy credit. And we had the 5,000 that was put in. So we had the 5,000 put in. It was capped then at that 2,000. So that's going to be like the max in this particular category. And then multiplying times that 10%, which is the 200. So once again, you might put notes over here so this should be, I put 200 times, this should be equal to 2,000 times 0.1, 10% cap. So there's the 200. So you could put tables over here and try to make more complex and categorize out all the potential credits on this side. But what I would typically do, and I think that's too tedious to do in your worksheet, I would basically just note when you do the Excel worksheet, take the information separately that you're going to be putting in place, that you're going to get from the source document, to double check to make sure you're picking up that credit, and then rely to some degree on the tax software to help you out to see if they claimed it in the past, to see what the cap is, and how much is going to be the limit on the different kind of credits that will be involved there. So now we've got these above these non-refundable tax credits, being the 2,000 child tax credit, the other dependent credit, the education credit. This is the non-refundable portion of it. The 480 for the child dependent care expenses credit, and then we have this residential energy credit to get to the total of the 4680. That then pulling over to our tax formula here on basically the non-refundable credits. So if we now compare what we have on our tax return, I'll go back to the tax return here. Let's do the whole thing here real quick. I'm going to go then to the 1040, and we'll go through this whole thing. We're going to say, okay, now we've got the income line item at the 135,726. So that's going to be over here, 135,726. The adjustments to income and therefore the adjusted gross income, 122,262. So we should have the AGI here, 122,262. Then we had the itemized deductions that we're taking at the 25,875. So that's going to be the 25,875 on the itemized deductions. We had the 10,166 for the qualified business income deduction, given our taxable income at the 86,220. So there's our 86,220. Then on page 2, we had the tax then calculated at the 10,459. So that's the 10,459. We're dependent on the software to calculate that. Then we have the non-refundable credits up top, which is going to include the 2,500 child tax credit, other credits, and then these amounts that are coming from the Schedule 3, which includes the credit that we just added here for a total of 4,680. So there's going to be our 4,680. We have the other taxes, which in this case is the self-employment tax. So the self-employment tax then added down here to give us our total tax of that 13,507. So now we're at the 13,507 at this time. So that's kind of, that takes into consideration the credits up top. Then we have our payments, which also includes the refundable credit, which in this case is part of the HOPE credit. So this includes the withholdings, then the amount of estimated payments, if we make any, in this case we did, and then we had the refundable credit, which is the 1,000. So here it is broken out. Here's the 8,000 on the withholdings from the W-2s, the 10,000 for the payments for the estimated tax payments, the 1,000 refundable portion of the HOPE credit, giving us that 19,000. The 19,000 compared to the 13,507 total tax then gives us a difference or overpayment of the 5,493.